Welcome, everyone, to another podcast. Today, you would not believe it, we have another special guest, Brad Thomas from the Brad Thomas Project. And as he says, quote, we'll keep playing till the by and by.
Yes,
I
sir. Yes,
love that.
sir.
So, with Brad, it started out as a dream to share music that speaks to the heart and carries the soul of the South. As an Alabama based singer songwriter, it's always been drawn to the sounds of metal, but his own music now finds its home in the rich storytelling tradition of Americana and country. What started as a solo journey has grown into something bigger, with talented musicians coming together to bring these songs to life, with the powerful voice and heartfelt guitar work of Kaylee Jordan, an artist from Ardmore, Alberta, and the old school country slangs of Eddie Lemons or Eric Lemons,
Eric Lemons, yes.
who's a seasoned musician from Brewer, Alabama. The Brad Thomas Project is pushing forward with energy, passion, and a love for Southern music. Welcome to the show, Brad. Thank you for being
Hey, I'm
here.
glad to be here.
So happy that you're here. Glad to meet you. So, can you tell us what inspired you to start the Brad Thomas Project?
I did this a little bit later than most people do, and I had kind of gotten into playing just back porch stuff with some friends of mine, and that kind of grew to us moving to doing some open mic things and things like that. And in the middle of that, I'm hitting here um, mixing in some of my own originals, and I mean, I didn't even go out and start to be a writer or anything like that. But I started when you start seeing people who are responding to the music that you wrote, that's your original stuff, just as much as they are to some cover that you're doing. Then and that right there really just that was the hook for me. Was that these people they're liking, you mentioned by and by. Uh, they like by and by, they like the shine and things like that, and other things that I wrote. And from that point, it just and inside of me, it just kind of took off. And it's a passion mainly for songwriting. I mean, I like performing, but the songwriting part of it for me is something that I really like to do, and it is the angle that I'm hoping to be able to get some songs picked up. And we record them. We go to the E320 studios to record. But I think in the long run, looking at me as a creator is kind of my goal.
What was your life like growing up? Like, did you pursue music, or was it something totally off the wall that you wanted to pursue, and then it hit you? I want to do music.
I had a friend of mine next door who I guess he was a good and bad influence on me in some ways, but he actually gave me. He was a little bit older than I was and gave me an acoustic guitar, and he showed me three chords, G, C, and D. And we used to sit around on his back deck, day after day, just sitting there playing and playing. Of course, I had no idea how to play, but he was very patient, and he helped teach me. And from there, I just started to learn because he was teaching me stuff like Charlie Daniels and some Bad Company songs and stuff like that. And then I had a passion for metal music when I was younger and even in my 20s and 30s. And so just uh, it just kind of grew from all that, from just sitting around and playing, and from trying to play the same things that Brian James Dio's doing, or Iron Maiden, or somebody like that. Um, but yeah, later on, it kind of shifted, as a lot of things do. You get a little bit more mellow, so you're not quite as interested as in uh, Black Sabbath and Judas Priest as you
Mm.
are now, as I am now, in like Blackberry Smoke, Cody Jinks, people like that.
Yeah. So, did you come from a musical family, or were you
No,
the only one that was musical? Oh,
I'm
really?
the only one. Yeah, even to this day, my parents, they don't, they're just kind of like, "What are you doing? What is that?" And they listen to all the songs, but they're like, they're still kind of standoffish about it. I'm the only one.
Yeah. So, how did you meet Kaylee Jordan and Eric Lemons?
So we all three started out at a little place in Coleman. that was a privately owned place by a man named Jerry Parker, and it's in his backyard. He's built this honky tonk, and it's called the Sawmill. And so we all three, the first time that we ever stepped on stage was at the Sawmill. They host a Friday night open mic nights, and we all three were there. I kind of took off, started playing out before the others did, but when the opportunity came, um, reached out to both of them and said, "Hey, do you guys want to start doing some stuff?" And so they kind of came on board. Now Kaylee's kind of gone off doing her own thing now. She just released an album, as a matter of fact. But Eric and I, that partnership kind of stuck, and we play probably about 120 to 130 shows a year, either duo or full band kind of things. But it all started at the Sawmill.
So when people ask you what kind of music do you do, how would you describe your musical style in your own words, of course?
I would say that for me, I am more. I like to tell stories more than anything. I want to be a storyteller. You can look through the songs that I've released, and I can tell you the story behind every single one of them. Whether it be something that I experienced or something that someone else experienced or a story that I've heard. And those things, a lot of people like today, if you look in country music today, you're going to find a lot of songs that fit a specific formula. And that's I think that's a lot of the reason why a lot of them sound all the artists sound the same is because they're fitting a formula. I'm not trying to fit a formula. I'm just trying to tell a story. And if it comes down in more of a bluegrass style, that's fine. If it comes down to more of a true country style, which on the 10 that I put out, there are a couple of those. If it's more of an Americana kind of feel, whatever kind of fits the story the best is what I try to do.
So coming from a metal background, what drew you towards Americana and country music?
It's real simple. My wife and I was at work. I've always listened to music all the time when I'm at work. And I had YouTube up one day and a video of Blackberry Smoke came up that was shaking hands with the Holy Ghost. I can vividly remember this because to this day, it's my favorite song that they do. Great Southern rock band. And my wife and I decided, hey, while the kids were young, we didn't do anything. We were all tied into their lives, doing what they, well, doing what they wanted to do, or taking to a ball game or whatever. But we decided Blackberry Smoke was in town, and we decided to go. And it was like a turning point for us. It was like, wow, this is amazing. The people were just super, super nice, and I'm talking to people in the crowd. And from there, it just branched out into going to see whoever we could. There was a period about 2 years that we went to shows almost. If there was a show every weekend, we went. It would be Cody Jinks, Whiskey Myers, Blackberry Smoke, um, just whoever. And it introduced us to a wide range of people. The Steel Woods was another one. They were just starting out when we saw them, and so it was a wide range of really of Southern rock and they would have either a Southern rock opener, it could be an Americana opener. Cody Jinks would have him have Ward Davis open. So it just slowly expanded our horizons, and all this kind of happened, just a couple of years before I actually started playing.
Wow. So do you think your metal influences still impact your sound today?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt in my mind because there are sometimes I've got countless number of ideas on my phone that I sat down with a guitar, and a couple of them I've held back because they're a little bit heavier, and I'm like, I don't know if that really fits me right now. And so I haven't really written words to the songs or anything like that. But I do know that the last one that I did was with Eric, and it was a song called "Sad Songs," which is straight up country. But the one before that was "Shake the Dust," and it was very much a rock song, a southern rock song, and I think all that ties into that ties into that background of metal and of hard rock. Because when Eric and I write, it's not going to be that way. But if I write, you're going to have a little bit more edge to it on some of them, a little bit heavier on some of them. And I think that goes just back to the kind of both of us were raised, different styles of music.
Do you always play your own music when you're performing, or do you play some covers?
No,
Like, what are your thoughts
no.
on covers?
It's okay. If you're performing out somewhere, it kind of becomes like if you got a 4 hour show, it's going to kind of become a necessity to do that. But I lean toward those songs that touch me. I'm not as interested in what's going to be a everybody else plays. As a matter of fact, like for example, there's a Chris Knight song to do called "It Ain't Easy Being Me," and I've
Mm.
had two times. I think it was the same guy. He didn't realize that he'd heard me do it before because he's probably drunk. But he came running up, and when I played that song, he said, "That's my cousin." And I said, "Cool." Um, but that's a song that I found that if you play a song from the heart, people generally respond to it, whether it's the traditional covers that everybody does, or it's something that you're pulling out that you like to do. Last night I tell you, here's another part of this. When I was before I got into metal, I was into the Beach Boys,
Wow. Well,
I
yeah,
like crazy,
we lost
like
Brian
crazy.
Wilson
So
just yesterday.
yeah, well, that's why a lady came up to me and said, "Hey, Brian Wilson just passed today. Can you play one of his?" And I thought, "Oh Lord, I don't know if I can." So I looked on my phone and I said, "Oh, I can do Sloop John B." And so we did that. I did that, and it went over well. So covers, it's kind of a catch-22. You have to fill in a show a lot of times, or when people request them.
Hmm.
But at the heart, the things that I've written are things that I have more of a connection to and uh, more of a passion about.
Yeah, you wrote some really great, passionate songs, such as "Sad Old Songs," "Shake the Dust," "Sunset," which is a good one, "Fly High," "Every Soldier's War," "Shine or Shine," "Torn Down," and my favorite, "By and By." Now, um, can you tell me what's the songwriting process like for you? Like, where do you usually find inspiration?
Different things. I'll tell you that the by and by was actually written. I was sitting on the love seat that's right across from me right now with my acoustic guitar, and we were about to have a band practice over here. Now that band practice never happened, but I sat down and wrote that song in about 15 minutes, and every part of it is about people that were in that band. And the band made it to two shows, and then egos got in the way, and we kind of went our separate ways. But the song stuck, and I've had a lot of people tell me that's their favorite one.
Yeah, so even though you find inspiration, are these experiences in your life, for instance, "Every Soldier's War," what's that one about?
My son served 10 years in the Air Force,
Mm.
and he was in three deployments in Iraq. No, three in Afghanistan, one in Iraq. And as a matter of fact, he was on the ground um, in Afghanistan about 2 days before the 13 soldiers were killed at the gate when
Mm.
the pullout came. He was the one of the last Air Force personnel that was on the ground, and it did a lot of there was a lot of baggage that came from that for him. He's told us stories that you wouldn't believe. I mean, horrendous stories about things that he saw, and it had an impact on him. That plus the fact that at the time he was in a very dysfunctional marriage, and he struggled for 4 or 5 years with PTSD. And
Wow.
at one point, the start of that song says a loaded gun is on the nightstand and a half empty bottle is in his hand. It was only 5 years after this incident happened that we were told about it. But he told us. that he and his wife got into an argument. He was sitting in with a gun by his side and
Wow.
a whiskey bottle, and she left and took the kids to a Thanksgiving uh, dinner that was being held next door, and he actually put the gun to his mouth, and he told me, he said, I didn't have the courage to pull the trigger.
Wow.
And I told him, I said, no, I said, you had the courage not to pull the trigger. And so that song is his story.
That must have been. They say that a song is usually uh, 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. For you, it was probably 100% perspiration because what you had to go through to write that song and how you
Yeah,
crafted it. I can imagine what you were going through and thinking of what happened with him. And wow,
it was tough. I mean, as a matter of fact, that song was actually a little bit longer at one point, and it had a different in a different key, kind of a different feel to it. And then one day I was sitting here. My wife was getting ready because we had to go out. It was a Friday night. We were going to a show that I was playing, and I just sat down and started playing this rhythm, and I started singing the words to it. And I called her in here, and I said, I think I've got it. I think this is the way the song needs to go. And she said, yes, do it. So yeah, it was. But even with that, it was about 3 or 4 years after I wrote it that I actually had the courage to go into the studio and record it. Just a lot of
wow.
emotion tied to it.
And just to imagine if I couldn't imagine what would happen if your son literally did that, and it's just now.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've thought about that thought's crossed our minds before, and I'm glad he didn't because things have turned around for him quite a bit, and he's remarried, and his wife is a great lady, and you know she where he's a little bit more of he's very emotional and um, jumps around a lot. She's very level headed and kind of keeps him in check, but. Um, the first time that he heard the song, I didn't even know my wife had done that. Whenever I write something, I'll sit down with my phone and I'll record it just so I remember it and I can go back and edit it however I think if I want to make changes or something like that.
wow, my
And
friend.
I did that. Then she sent it to him, and he called back and said he was crying. Said I didn't know that anybody understood. So.
Wow. So, wow. So, besides the Beach Boys and whatever, so are there any other artists that have shaped your approach to music?
Oh, well, these days, well, and like if you call me during the day, I'm constantly playing music. And if you caught me during the day, you're not going to hear me listening to but any mainstream artist. I'm listen. I kind of I gravitate toward uh, songwriters. So like right now, I'm on a kick with Jason Isbell, going through all of his stuff.
Hmm.
I've been on kicks with Chris Knight, who is a great, just a gritty songwriter. Um, James McMurtry, you know, John Prine, David Allen Coe, there's just so many of them. Guy Clark, Blaze Foley. I mean, these are people that I just get hooked into their music, and sometimes when I write one, I'll go back and I'll think, gosh, I just channeled, and not doing it intentionally. I'm like, I just channeled John Prine on that one, or I just channeled
Hmm.
Chris Knight, that kind of thing. But there's quite a few these days, and they're all the songwriter types.
Wow. So, Brad, what's your favorite song you've written so far, and why? Is it "Every Soldier's War"? Perhaps that sounds like a favorite one. If that happened to me, like,
Well, I think there's a lot more emotion to that one, but I see this whole thing as a process, and I can listen to the early recordings like the two that I wrote that Kaylee sang for me, and then when I started doing my own like Torn Down and Every Soldier's War and By and By, and then I listen to the ones now, and it's like you see a you see, I guess it's kind of like a maturity in what you're doing. It seems like every time when I put one out, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so much better than what I would have done it a year ago or even 6 months ago. So I'll tell you right now, the one that I knew as soon as I wrote um, um, when I wrote, there's a couple of them I wrote. When I wrote Sunset, I knew that I thought that one's pretty good. When I wrote Shake the Dust, though, I thought
Mm.
I don't know how I did that because I think that it's a song about my love for playing out, but it's also a song about my kind of a mentality. If you're somewhere and they don't want to hear you, fine. I'll move on to the next place. I'll shake the dust off my feet. I'll go to where they do. So I really like that one right
What kind of emotional things to go through your mind when, like, for every soldier's war, that when you have to, like, for instance, how do you feel when you perform your songs live? Like, what's the energy like? And you have to perform every soldier's war. Do you have to explain to everyone what it's about, or you just sing it and move on? It's like, they say,
now.
this song is about,
I think if it kind of depends. I like to I like people to know what it's about. And if I'm playing somewhere, like for example, I've played at a couple of the American Legions here, in one in Huntsville and one in Fultondale, which are both very close to me. And I also played at a place called Camp Liberty at a benefit that they had
mm,
for a young man. And when I tell them about that, I'll always have these people, veterans, come up and saying that that they're like, I feel that song. Um, and there's always more emotion that goes into something when you're playing something of your own compared to playing something of someone else's. I think that's uh, just a natural part of performing. But I want people to know that it's personal, and I like to tell them why.
when you perform live, everyone has an opener and closer. Am I to assume that every soldier's war is a closer? Because if you sang that first or in the middle, I'd be so caught up in emotion I couldn't continue my play.
Actually, it's not.
Oh wow.
If for closer, the reason we do Cody Jinks song "Hippies and the Cowboys" because Eric's an old he was a cowboy for the longest time, and here I've got my hair up in a ponytail and everything. I'm the hippie, so we play that and change the words a little bit to kind of fit us,
Mm,
and we use that as a closer.
nice. So, what's one message you hope people take away from your music? Anything special?
I just want to connect. That's the biggest thing. There's a line in the David Allen Coe song, "The Ride," says, Drifter, can you make folks feel what you feel inside? And that's what I constantly think about. I don't want to play one of my songs and have dead silence at the end. I want people to connect to it, and if they do connect to it, then I feel like I've done what I've set out to do right there. I had one situation where I was playing a little small place about an hour from here, and I played that song "Torn Down," and it was before the song had actually come out, and well, I played it. And it was about the second to the last song I did. And when I finished up, this lady comes up with her phone and said, that song, I tried to Shazam it to see who did it. Who did that song? And I told her, well, I did. And she looked at me like, and she said, are you serious? I said, yes. As a matter of fact, it's coming out in 2 weeks. And I told her how to listen to it when it did. Now that right there, that when stuff like that happens is when you're like, okay, I've connected with somebody. They're hearing the message, not just the words and the guitars.
It's funny how you can be in a bar or a restaurant or someplace I've been, and you hear this song, you're like, "Oh, that's a great song," and the person says, "Yeah, you like it? I love it. I really like to talk to the person that wrote that. It's great." And you Shazam it, and you're like, "What? Who is?" And you mention it. So that's me. What? You wrote, and then you have a whole conversation with them. That's a very
Hmm.
rare thing, though. Um, I want you to explain the quote, "We'll keep playing till the by and by." Can you give us a little bit of a history and what's that one about? Like, where did that come from?
That's the one that came about the band that I was in. But it was just kind of like I remember one of the friends, and I'm still friends with one of the guys that was in that. As a matter of fact, he's filling in on the band because our bass player was having on Saturday night because our bass player was having eye surgery. But one time we were he and I were playing out somewhere, and he said, you're not gonna you're not gonna fade out on me. I said, no, man, I'm gonna keep going. And so as long as God gives me breath, I'm gonna do what I can. I'm gonna keep going. And so when I was writing the song, I thought, okay, that kind of fits. We'll just keep playing till the by and by until we can't do it anymore. We're gonna go. So that's where that came from.
That's awesome. Brad, so do you have a dream venue where you'd love to perform someday?
Well, right now, I'll tell you this. I went Monday. This has been a busy week because I was in a writers round Monday and Tuesday, then played at a uh, at American Legion for some folks last night. And Monday was the first writers round that I had in Nashville. And I took the chance to go up there. And I told the guy who was running, his name is Bobby Ray, and I told him, I said, man, I did this because I wanted to see, I mean, do I fit in? Are the songs good enough to fit? Because I felt like if it fits in with you guys, then it could fit in with all these others, with these other writers. And he messaged me back. He said, no, dude. He said, you fit in. He says, as a matter of fact, can you come up next month and do it again? I said, well, yes, I can. Even though it's about a 2.5 hour drive for us, but I want to get into the Bluebird Cafe up there because I think any writer that's done anything up there has gone through Bluebird.
Hmm.
And so my wife and I actually were researching this just the other day. And there's a process of the way you get into it. And so, you think, am I looking to go out and play Red Rocks or something like that? If it happens, that's great. If it doesn't, you know what? I've got this avenue of getting these songs out and getting them at the point that other artists hear them and say, of course, that are much bigger than I am, and say, I would love to do your song. If I can do that and get hooked into the writing aspect of it, I was so happy. Because the one thing about me, I started this late. I'm 60 years old. I'm not gonna, at this age, you're not gonna have all these record companies putting all this money into you, and that's fine. If I can hook in and get the songs heard, then that's all I need. Because I have had, and I do think some of these are really good. I think some are better than others, and if the one, and I've got a lot of others too that I have not just not recorded, and if I can get them hooked into that songwriting avenue, I'd be really happy.
What do you think of AI in music? Like, would you want an AI playing your song "Shine or Shine" or "Fly High," or an
No,
AI singing "Every Soldier's
no,
War"? But when it sings it, it puts more of an emotional spin on it. No.
no. I think music, even you think about um, whether when you're playing live, there's imperfections in music all over the place. You're going to mess up. Okay, that happens. You go in the studio and you do your best to get everything just perfect. It's not going to happen. There's always going to be something you go back and find. I can listen to, the other day we were out grilling out in the backyard and I was listening to a song. I can't remember who it was by, but I caught a flaw in the song. And I said, hey, what? They didn't edit that song right. But I think two things. Number one, AI cannot have the same creativity as a human can. And the second thing is when you hear AI instruments, they never sound like the real instruments. Just it doesn't do it. Voices don't sound. You can always pick out something where there's an issue with that. And so no, I'm just not a big fan of it. Now, who knows what it evolves to in the future? But as of right now, there's so many ways you can pick out the differences.
Yeah, I remember when they put the first 8 seconds of "Hey Jude" by the Beatles. and it completed it. It didn't sound like Hey Jude, but it was totally different melody. And they put it through a second time and a third time. It was just totally different. The whole ending was always different. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, not a, musicians don't like that whole thing with AI and music. Um, so, Brad, what are the biggest challenges you faced in pursuing your musical career?
I think the biggest thing that I've come across, because I told you about my passion for the songwriting and everything. The biggest thing is knowing the correct avenues to go. What do you do? If you want your song heard and possibly picked up by someone, where do you go?
Hmm.
And for the longest, I had no idea until I went to a songwriter round um, in Hayden, Alabama, that I've gone to several times. As a matter of fact, I'm missing it tonight because of this. But
Oh,
there was a lady, there was an established national writer named Kelly Johnson was there, and Kelly was super nice. I've written with a couple of, I've written with another guy who was a national songwriter, and he was kind of like, yeah, very standoffish and everything like that. And she was not. And she said, if you want your songs heard, it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter how talented you are. If it's a good song, it's a good song, and they'll take it. And so she said, she mentioned a couple of organizations which I've now gotten involved with, and then also talked about just having your presence, people knowing who you are up there, and which is one of the reasons I went Monday just to start that process, so people could know who I was. And then, like I said, it went really, really, really well. It went better than I thought. And so, we're going back in July, and actually going to go there for 2 days and go to another place that a guy, an older gentleman, came up to me after I was over on Monday. He said, "You need to go to Commodore Grill. You need to do their open mic night there, and that's how." He said, "You'll get in." He said, "I promise you, you'll get in."
hmm.
So, but knowing to do that, I mean, how do you know that? Unless you have someone that's willing to help or tell you, you have no idea.
Yeah,
And so that to me for the longest time was the real challenge of knowing what to do. And of course, I don't know a lot, but I know enough now that okay, I feel like I've got a direction where I'm going as opposed to just spinning my wheels. And I'm not saying spinning my wheels. That sounds bad. I, when you're playing out and you're building a fan base, which is super helpful, and you're growing your social media presence. You're recording music. You're doing all these things. Like these are all there. That's not spinning your wheels. I mean, that's just something what everyone has to do. But I think taking it to that next level, that's the whole thing. What do you do to do that? And that's been to me the biggest challenge because there's no book out there that tells you what to do. No guide or anything like that. You just have to uh, keep knocking on doors and keep going, and hopefully you find the right
right.
way.
Yeah. Yeah, if you really want something, you will go after it. You should talk, Chris. Seriously. Um, so, can you tell us about a memorable moment you've had as a musician?
Hmm. Let me think about that for a second. There's a lot of things that just pop up. Um, I think that, okay, I'll say this. So when when I recorded the first two songs that I've written, they've been written for a female. Obviously, I don't qualify for that, so I had to find a female that could do those songs. And Kaylee and I had played a bunch of shows together, but she was about to go off and do her own thing because she's younger and she's got a chance to really make a lot of waves. And but I asked her, I said, okay, before you do that, can you do me a favor and do these two songs? And she said, sure, because we played them live several times. And so we go in the studio with David Best and we put them down. And I start throwing these songs, all these independent stations all over, everything I could find. And he got picked up by ISA and the Rick Spence show on ISA, and it goes to number one on there. And
Wow.
and and I was just like, okay, all right. I can write this. I can write these songs. I can write songs that people like, and that's just an example. There are other things that have happened along the way, but that was like the first time, one of the first times I thought, okay, I can do this. I mean, because I wrote that song. I sat on the side of my bed with an acoustic guitar and wrote that whole daggone song in a matter of about 20 minutes. And with the help of David Vest and as a producer, and with the help of Kaylee singing it, and Justin Beals, a good friend of mine who came in and did the lead guitar work on it. It takes a team, but you know what? It all started what I did on sitting on the side of my bed with an acoustic guitar.
Hmm. That's true. That's where it starts. I talked to one musician, and he said that he said, "Oh, I've been given a. I know people with guitar, and they take the guitar, and they strum it, and beautiful music comes out." And then he said, "But it didn't happen for me, so I took it and I threw out the window." But he's still a
Well,
musician
that
today. And another musician said they found a guitar and someone was threw it out in the garbage, and that's what got him on the fast track to music.
well, it doesn't. You're not going to get good overnight. No, no, it takes practice,
Hmm.
countless practice. One of the reasons I like playing out is because the more I play out, playing out at 120. Well, this year I'm on pace to do over 130 shows this year at different places. The more I do that, the better I get, and the more everything just feels automatic as opposed to, it's muscle memory,
Hmm.
and you're able to play more things. You're able to play things that you couldn't play 6 months ago. That's always a great feeling. And
Yeah,
then and then in writing, you can come up with ideas in writing that are more complex than you could have 6 months ago that fit. So it all kind of plays together.
that's true. So what's next for the Brad Thomas project? Any upcoming releases or shows?
June 23rd. Well, yeah, we've got two shows this weekend, two the next, two that it's usually two or three every week. But on June 23rd, I'm going in to record two songs. One of them is a co-write with Eric Lemons that we wrote. Oddly enough, it's kind of a we were at a place in I'm not going to name the place, but we were at a place in another town, and every time we went there, it rained. Every stinking time it rained. And we walked in there this one night, place was packed. Man, we thought this is going to be a great night, but we were trying to get our band meal ahead of time. We couldn't get that because they were understaffed. We found out later the kitchen staff had walked out, so they were just kind of piecing it together how they could. And
Wow.
so we hit the stage, and it's like we're playing to a brick wall. And it didn't matter what we did. We're playing to a brick wall. And I came out, and on the way home, Eric got stopped in the pouring rain by a police officer. And, the
Wow.
whole night, it was just one of those nights you want to put in the rearview mirror. So I sat down the next day and I wrote this song called Small Town Bar. And it is a very catchy, upbeat song. And so we're going to go in and do that one. And then I've got another one that I'm going to do that I'm kind of wavering back and forth of which one of the ones that I've written. So those will be released in July. So we got some, we just try to do one or two songs every couple of months to keep it fresh because, you see your streaming numbers. If you're not putting, unless you're a big artist, if you're not putting something out consistently, uh, um, your numbers dip, and then when you put something out, they jump back up, and they. But if you're not, they kind of dip back down, and so we're we're, we're going to keep doing that this summer.
So when you do like, how do you decide which songs to record and which ones to keep for live performances?
Some of them are easy. I mean, um, when I wrote "Shake the Dust," I knew right away. I'd only played that song out live two times when
Hmm.
I went to record it, but I knew exactly what I was going to do because I played it out live and people loved it, and I said, "Yep, that's the one." And sometimes like right now, I've got songs that I wrote 5 years ago that are in the running for for being recorded this time. I've got some that are a couple of them that I wrote last year that I may do. I may do one that I wrote. And I'll have to decide the next week so that I've got it, down in my mind what I'm going to do.
Yeah. So here's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I love this question. If you could collaborate with any artist, living or past, who would it be and why?
Oddly enough, I've had that question before.
Oh, really?
Yes, I have. It's a very tough question because if you're talking about the past, if I could name you people like Blaze Foley. I don't know if you're familiar with Blaze Foley. If you're not, you ought to. There's a movie called Blaze that's out there that you ought to watch. That's really good. Um, just a tragic story of his life. He wrote some songs that were just like, "What were you thinking, Blaze?" And some of them that were just brilliant. Um, you know, I would love to sit down with him. I would love to sit down with Guy Clark. I would love to sit down with Cody Jinks right now. It's hard to choose one.
So you mean to tell me that suddenly you hear, "Hello, it's Paul McCartney," and I hear that Brad Thomas is here? You would say no?
Oh no way! I would do that. I don't know how well we would mesh together, but me, here, and this sister's got to live out in the middle of nowhere in Alabama. I don't foresee that happening.
First of all, how did you find my address?
That's right. Oh, sorry, my dog's trying to get in the picture. There she is.
Yeah. Oh, I've gotten Hannah. Hannah likes to appear on screen once. Um, so what's the one piece of advice you would give to an aspiring musician, those who want to be like Brad Thomas himself?
It's such a difficult question to ask because that's another one that's come up before. What would you do? But I will say this: the one thing that I will tell you, if you're not persistent in what you're doing, you don't have that passion for it, and a lot of people have the passion, don't do anything about it. But persistence. If this place, like for example, trying to get booked somewhere, if they tell you no, there's going to be someplace else that'll take you in. I guarantee you. They'll give you a shot, and if you're any good, they'll ask you back. Um, if you're, uh, and I think that right there is one of the biggest downfalls that people have is that they shoot very low. They're not persistent in what they do. They don't have the drive, and if you have the drive, you I can tell you from experience, there are doors that open up that you never thought would open. Places that you get to play that you never thought you get to play. You know, your songs will get played on the radio, even though you thought. And these are I'm telling you things that I thought at sometimes. You're going to get your songs played all over the world, and you don't even know it. But if you're persistent about it and keep knocking on doors, and that doesn't apply to venues, but that applies to everything. That applies to getting your songs on the radio. That applies to um, having them heard in other places. If you don't have that, you're not going to do it.
I really appreciate this, Brad. Thank you so much for being on our show. I literally am so happy that we were able to connect tonight. Everyone will all the information for Brad Thomas will link down below, including his Spotify and any other pertinent work. Thank you, Brad. I really appreciate it. Wait right there. We're going to end the stream. Don't go anywhere.
Okay,
Okay, everyone. Thanks for watching the Brad Thomas Project with Brad Thomas. Thank you. Wait right there. Okay, everyone.
got you.